So I wanted to give you all an update on what's going on with the minimum wage. You know, the good, the bad, and the hypocritical. Okay, let's start with the good. The good is that Bernie Sanders just came out and said that they will pass the stimulus bill, which includes a $15 minimum wage, money for states, money for vaccinations, etc. $1.9 trillion. He said they will pass it if necessary through budget reconciliation. Now, this is great news. Finally, our budget committee chairman is someone with a backbone and someone who actually has the best interest of the American people, you know, and who uses his power to, better the lives of the American people and advocate for the American people. In Bernard Sanders. Now, Bernie has said, yes, that they will use budget reconciliation. Now, what is budget reconciliation? Budget reconciliation is a way to get a bill passed in the House. A bill passed in the Senate that basically allows you to circumvent the filibuster. Now, if you don't know, the filibuster has been like a topic of discussion. I could explain like where filibuster law came from originally. Like it was originally the filibuster was originally used to stop a lot of legislation from going forward when the minority didn't have the votes. For instance, when they were trying to pass the Civil Rights Act, people used the filibuster to try to not get it passed. So, not the greatest history with the filibuster. I don't know why Republicans want to keep it. Oh, of course I do, because they want to obstruct our political process. And they want to keep bills from being passed that'll help people. And, rather than them not have the majority and say, okay, try again in 2 years, they will do everything at their disposal to try to keep Democrats from passing their agenda. Now, anyway, back to budget reconciliation. Oh, and two, if you don't know what the filibuster is, I could give you the long version. The short version is people just talk and talk for hours to keep a bill from being passed. Okay, that's the short version. You can, if you want to learn more about the filibuster in details, I'll link an article below that you can read. But so anyway, budget reconciliation is a way for the filibuster to be circumvented. Now, normally, in order to prevent a filibuster, you need 60 votes in the Senate, right? But if you're going to do budget reconciliation, which is passing bills that have to do with the government's budget, like a stimulus check, you can avert the filibuster with only 51 votes. So you only need the simple majority to get the bill passed, pretty much. Now, there's different ways to pass bills. Some bills are passed through a simple majority, like 51, like this one. Or you could say it has to pass the Senate with 60, depending on the bill and what Senate rules are being used. But yes, so this is a huge win for the left. And I know that was a lot. That was very dicey. But this is a huge win for the left that Bernie Sanders wants to use his power and his ability to do budget reconciliation to pass this relief bill for Americans that would include a $15 minimum wage. That's the good news. Now, of course, there's a caveat to everything. What could you expect from the establishment Democratic Party? So the bad news is that the $15 minimum wage, when this bill passes, if and when this bill passes, will not kick in until 2025. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe they had to negotiate with Republicans and do 2025. But no. My computer's acting crazy. I'm sorry. Okay. You might think maybe they had to negotiate with Republicans to... and so 2025 was a compromise. But no, you'd be wrong. As the Democrats, they just said, hey, we can do this by 2025. Like, that is terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. As the party that is in power, you have all the negotiating power. What you do is say, hey, we want a $15 minimum wage passed, and we want that wage passed right now. And the Republicans, because they're the minority, are supposed to say, Oh, we don't want it right now. How about 5 years from now? And they say, all right, how about 3? And that's my final offer. And if you don't do 3, I'm going to hold up every single bill that you guys want passed that we can bipartisanly agree on until you pass this bill. That's what you do. That's how you play hardball. That's how you negotiate. Democrats do not do this. See, Republicans, they'll do anything. They'll shove justices through before presidential elections. They'll change their voter laws for their states to try to keep certain people from voting. They'll gerrymander their districts in like southern states where the population is, they have a large black population where mostly people are Democrats. They'll switch up the districts so that Republicans can keep their power and remain in power. All type of things that have been done, that Republicans have done to hold on to power. And what do Democrats do when they get power? They immediately capitulate to the Republicans' demands and desires. They water down their own bills before they can even have an argument on them. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's quite frankly silly and idiotic to do because you're giving up your negotiation power. Now, what can we do about this? We can call our senators, call your senator, whoever your state senator is, and your House representative. Call them and pressure them. Hey, we need $15 minimum wage in 2021. We need it this year. We cannot wait for 2025. We cannot wait another 4 years to raise the federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage has not been raised since the 2000s. $7.25 is minimum wage in my home state of Pennsylvania. You cannot live off of $7.25 an hour in this state. Matter of fact, some people in some states, like say New York, or even here in Philadelphia, it's even hard. In New York, it's impossible. Philadelphia, it's even hard to live off of $15. I have friends who make $15 an hour and they can barely afford their rent and bills. So this is absolutely necessary. You would think during a pandemic, at a time when people are unemployed, and when people who are employed, essential workers, are making poverty wages, like working at Walmart or McDonald's, you would think you would want to do this as soon as possible. But no, the Democrats, as Kyle Kalinske calls them, the diet Republicans, or I say the moderate Republicans, that's what Democrats are. They are negotiating against themselves and not using common sense, of course. And a lot of people in the Senate know this. I just did a video on a senator from Pennsylvania, 2 days ago, and he was saying the same thing. Sometimes we negotiate against ourselves. And he's right. They do. So, I would love to be optimistic and say, hey, maybe we'll get this sooner, or maybe like Bernie will use some of his power or something. But the reality is, if they're saying 2025, we're probably not going to get this till 2025 at best. And that's if the bill even passed, because you have people like James Manchin, conservative Democrats who are basically Democrats in name only, who basically vote with the Republicans 80% of the time. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult to get this $15 minimum wage passed. But if it passes, and if the Corona relief bill passes, there will be $1,400 checks for every American, and minimum wage will be raised to $15. So these are good things. However, I do want to throw in there that $1,400 checks is not what they promised. They promised $2,000 checks. So the Democrats, they're being very weaselly, saying, oh, well, $1,400 plus $600 is $2,000. No. After the $600 was already given out, you promised us $2,000. So it should be a total of $2,600. But I digress. I did another rant about that, and about Joe Biden. So I'm going to move on. The final piece, what a lot of Republicans are saying, and a lot of people on Fox News are saying as well, is, businesses cannot afford to pay a $15 minimum wage. First of all, that is a lie. The people who employ the most minimum wage workers are companies like Walmart and what is it? I cannot remember the other one, but I know Walmart has the most people working for minimum wage. And they're one of the largest employers in the country. They have their workers working part-time so that they don't get full-time benefits. See, a lot of people don't even know this. Like, Walmart has one of the best benefit packages, but you would never know because no one gets the benefits. Because they cut people's hours off at 31 and a half so that people can't be full-time. Therefore, they don't have to give them benefits. So it's really weaselly. But anyway, Walmart can absolutely pay $15 minimum wage. Matter of fact, I remember about 5 years ago, they said in order to keep their profit margin at the exact same place it is now, all they would have to do if when paying people $15 is raise the price of every single item that they sell by a whole 3 cents. So if they can raise the prices on things by 3 cents, then they can afford to make the same amount of money they're making now. And they can get a minimum wage. Pay people a $15 minimum wage. Now, this argument that they can't afford it is totally bogus. But beyond that, people say, oh, what about small businesses? Small businesses can't afford to pay this. Well, I have 2 things to say to that. Number one, if you cannot afford to pay your workers a livable wage, you should not be in business. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be upset and, how could you say that? I'm sorry. And as a person who's attempted to run multiple businesses in the entertainment industry, I put together events. I'm not going to say if a rapper says, hey, I'm in my performance price to 1,000 from 500. I'm not going to say, oh, but I can't afford that. I should pay you 500. No, you should not. You should pay the person the price that they are worth. In this country, you're supposed to be paid on your worth, based on your production. That's why we have work, unions and things of that nature. And also you're supposed to be paid a living wage, which clearly these things don't happen, but at least in principle, this is the way it's supposed to be. So if you cannot afford to pay your workers a $15 minimum wage, you should not be in business. If you're saying, oh, that's going to make me not profitable, well, you should go out of business. Sorry. That's free market capitalism for you. Free market capitalism says if you cannot make a profit and if you cannot create enough demand to make a profit, you go out of business. So that's that. Okay. Now, I do understand that some small businesses are struggling due to the pandemic. So, okay, maybe they cannot pay a $15 right away. Maybe you don't want to just do more people to go out of business. Okay, I understand that argument. But if that's the angle you're coming at it from, you can put a provision in this bill that says, hey, we are going to not raise the minimum wage for these companies for another 5 years until they're able to afford to pay for it. So like small businesses like restaurants or small convenience stores, maybe you can say, okay, they only have to pay a minimum of $10 an hour. And we will gradually raise that over the next 5 to 6 years until it is 15. I get ideally 6 years. So they'll have to add $1, a little bit less than $1 every year until they get to 15 in about 5 or 6 years. That's reasonable. And that can be done, and that provision can be added. But I will say, if you cannot afford to pay your workers a living wage, you should not be in business. I'm sorry. It's just, people don't like to hear it, but it's the truth. You should not be in business if you cannot afford to pay your workers a living wage. Because if you want to go by that argument, imagine being like, oh, well, I'm not making any money. I'm losing money every year in my business. I only want to pay $5 an hour. Then you can make an argument, okay, let's get rid of the minimum wage, $7.25. You should be able to pay people $5, $4, $3. So, you cannot not pay your workers a living wage just for the sake of making a profit. That is unacceptable. That is ridiculous. I mean, you might, if you want to justify the fact that somebody can't afford to pay the labor a working wage, I could justify anything. I could justify slavery and say, oh, you know what? I can't afford to pay labor, so let me have a slave for free labor because I can't afford it. Oh, woe is me. No, absolutely not. If you cannot afford to pay your workers a living wage, you should not be in business. Okay? I want to make that clear. That's number one. Number two is that, sorry guys for that airplane flying over my apartment. Number two, small businesses, we can put in provisions in the bill so that small businesses do not have to pay the $15 right away and that they can pay it over the course of 5 years. But big businesses like Walmart and the top 100 companies in the United States, they can afford it and they should be paying $15 right now. So yeah, guys, that's an update on what's going on with the minimum wage. This video is a little bit of a different format than I normally do, so I'm sorry it was so long, but I wanted to give you guys the information and just let you know what's going on because a friend of mine I spoke to yesterday was saying he feels like $15 minimum wage is not being discussed enough in mainstream media or in media in general. And obviously, in the bubble that we live in or the media that I create, obviously we discuss it all the time, but I don't think that overall, like when I watch Fox News, I don't hear too much about it, unless it's negative. CNN, MSNBC will talk about it every once in a while. Nightly news almost never brings this up. So I wanted to give you guys the information on what's going on and just like the process of everything leading up to hopefully us getting at least $1,400 stimulus checks and getting a $15 minimum wage bill passed. So there we go. I thank you guys for listening. And look, I don't do this too often because I don't want to seem thirsty, but please like and subscribe, turn on post notifications, drop a comment below. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Citizen Movement. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's support and hopefully we can get this $15 minimum wage done sometime within the next coming weeks. But call your senators. Please call your senators and House Representative members, please, and pressure them that we need this right now. Oh, and another thing, I had to add this at the end. All the Republicans who are complaining on Fox News and all the Republican senators who are complaining that the Democrats are quote-unquote abusing budget reconciliation to get a bill passed quickly, they need to stop because Republicans have been doing this for years. The Republicans in 2017 did not have the votes in the Senate to pass Trump's tax cuts. So what they did was they used budget reconciliation to get it passed super quickly. In the Trump tax cuts, 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. So you gave your rich friends a payday at the expense of the American people. But when Bernie Sanders and the Democrats actually want to help people by giving them relief that they actually need and by raising minimum wage to $15 so that people are no longer making poverty wages around the country, they want to say, oh, well, we believe in principle and we believe in doing things through the system. And then miss me with that, bro. Miss me with that. Like, and that's completely untrue. It's unequivocal. Not only is it unequivocally false, but it's very conniving because Republicans have passed. This is a good bill. Republicans have passed very bad bills through budget reconciliation in the past. And when they do get the majority back, because inevitably, eventually they probably will, they will continue to do so. So, yes, we should do this. Absolutely. People need this money, and we need a $15 minimum wage.